Welcome back to Software with Sean. Today we're tackling the question everyone in tech is arguing about right now. Is SaaS actually dying? Okay, so let's talk about this because it's a big conversation. First off, I'm not going to sit here and tell you the answer is simple because it's not. Anyone telling you that is full of shit. So disregard all the LinkedIn posts you see. If you Google this as well, you're probably going to get a bunch of articles with some people saying it's over and the world is burning. And then there's going to be another camp saying like, relax, everything's fine. It's sort of filled with a bunch of narrow-sided takes from what I've gathered. But I wanted to dig into the actual data, the VC reports, the forecasts, the analyst reports, and even I have personal experience because I work in the SaaS industry and I can tell you what I'm seeing. The truth is, this is a lot messier and honestly super interesting. So for my friends tuning in that don't know much about the industry, the TLDR on SaaS is just instead of buying software like we did years and years ago when we went to Best Buy and got Microsoft Office and put it in a disk, you now pay a subscription every month, every quarter, every year, whatever your company or your team works out for a deal. Now, examples of SaaS would be Spotify SaaS, Salesforce is SaaS, Slack, Zoom, Adobe. These are all SaaS products because you pay a subscription, right? There's billions of dollars in this industry, and honestly now maybe even trillions. I'm sure it is probably in the trillions. And the reason it has worked so well for so long is actually very simple. So don't overcomplicate it. If you as a company own the workflow, own the data, you make a lot of money. Investors love you. The reason being, users are going to log into the software every day. They're going to build out workflows and processes around your software, and they can't easily leave because leaving means losing everything or having to migrate to another platform that might be a pain in the ass to actually move to. So that's sort of the moat within this model. If you own the workflow, you sort of own the customer. Now, the pricing behind traditional SaaS has changed a lot over the years, and companies have adapted to what makes sense for them and their sort of niche. But mainly what we've been seeing is what's called the seat-based pricing. Now, this is super straightforward. You pay per user, right? You have 10 employees using Salesforce, you pay for 10 seats. You have 100 employees, you pay for 100 seats. It was very predictable, very scalable, but this model is recently under fire and it's starting to show. Like you can see this for yourself if you just do a little bit of research. Like go look at Salesforce stock price, right? They hit an all-time high of like $360 a share back in 2024. And if you fast forward to right now in 2026, their stock is down like 28% on the year. Now, that's not all AI. ServiceNow also missed targets partly because of like on-prem deals slowing down because of what's going on in the Middle East. But here's the thing, there was a major structural price correction in enterprise software across the board. Like essentially investors are reassessing how much these businesses are actually worth, which has caused stock prices to fall and people to sort of reevaluate their investments. Now, you can sit around and kind of speculate why this is, but I think the underlying reason is pretty obvious. It's because AI is sort of killing the logic behind seat-based pricing. And honestly, what makes the software competitive as a whole, like you can think about it this way. If I'm using ChatGPT or Claude that can do the work of 10 customer support reps, why do I need 10 seats? I don't need them. I actually need 0 seats. The per seat model made a lot of sense in a world where software helped humans like us do the work. But when AI does the work instead of us humans, the whole model sort of breaks down and we have to find a new way to price this in. Now we're going to dive into the data a bit more to show how this is playing out for SaaS companies. I actually started reading a bunch of VC reports that I probably got in way over my head, but there's a company called Sapphire Ventures, which is a big enterprise software VC, and they published a report back in 2025. And what I found in there was actually pretty interesting. They found that like over 400 enterprise software unicorns, which are companies that are worth over $1 billion or more, hadn't raised money in over 18 months. They were sort of just sitting there. They actually calculated that the pre-2021 average IPO pace, it would take like more than 50 years to clear the backlog of companies, which is wild because these clearly aren't bad companies. Most of them have really solid revenue and real customers, real engineering teams, real product teams, real sales teams. So it poses the question, why can't these SaaS products get funding rounds? Well, I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into that to understand why people are saying that. So while the investor data is pretty clear, like right now, 33% of all US venture capital dollars look to be going to the top 1% of companies, which are your OpenAIs, Anthropic, Google, Cursor, all of them. That's up from like 12% from just 3 to 4 years ago. So if you're an AI company, investors are actually paying like over a 200% premium compared to what they pay for a non-AI company. So when you hear SaaS is dead, this is what you should think. Traditional software businesses built on a seat-based pricing without really an AI story is at a lot of risk. They're structurally disadvantaged in terms of like vision. VCs, investors are moving on. You hear it when you listen to any Sequoia interview. They're being really cautious about how they invest and where they invest. So speaking of Cursor, which I just mentioned, they're actually a great example. They went from $100 million ARR to $2 billion ARR in 14 months, not 14 years, 14 months. That doubled in a single quarter. Like that is unprecedented software growth historically. And they're honestly not the exception when I looked. Like Sierra hit $150 million ARR, Harvey, $190 million, Glean, $200 million. These are all AI companies that are eating workflows that traditional SaaS products used to own. So then you ask, does that mean is SaaS over? Is it all just AI companies? No, and I want to be really specific about why. This is the part every person on LinkedIn in these terrible posts seem to like miss. Yes, AI is disrupting existing SaaS naturally, but at the same time, it's creating an entirely new market. Now, I'm not a huge fan of consultants because I think they have their own perspective, but I think David Crawford, Chris McLaughlin, and Greg Fiore at Bain & Company wrote a kick-ass article and hit the nail on the head. They published a report essentially saying that there's $100 billion in the US alone and $200 billion globally in what they're calling cross-system labor. That's sort of work humans currently do that involves jumping between enterprise systems. You can use a pretty straightforward example of like pulling budgets from like an ERP or checking inventory in a spreadsheet. I don't know, maybe chasing an approver for like a purchase order over email. Like these are 3 different data sources and systems, but they all kind of need to communicate together. There's no software currently that like automates this because it requires judgment, context, and there's a lot of ambiguity with these workflows. So like these shitty Python scripts we write and the rule following bots that we've built with like Zapier, they can't do it, but AI agents can because they can reason. So vendors have captured what they're saying less than 6% of that market. So the money flowing out of like old seat-based SaaS, a lot of it may go into companies exploring integrations with agentic workflows. So the other thing to sort of look at when you talk about SaaS is not everything is equally exposed. Like the companies that own trust, the relationships, the secure environments, someone like Palantir who's killing it right now, those companies have a moat and it's something AI startups are going to spend years trying to replicate and most likely are going to fail at. Like the prior moat we saw was sort of owning the workflow. The new moat is sort of owning the data across multiple workflows. And if you own a relationship like government entities or something that's hard to break into, then you're going to have a huge economic moat for your company. Now, the ones that are obviously at a disadvantage are the ones that are not evolving and the ones that are more point solutions and just sort of have one workflow that they master, right? So is SaaS fucked? The honest answer is it depends totally on which SaaS you're talking about. Pricing is going to change. How we interact with SaaS will change. Engineering teams are going to have to evolve, and we're going to have to think about this market differently. Now, if you want my opinion, which you should take with a grain of salt, because I obviously have my own bias experiences, and to be frank, I'm an idiot sometimes. But the way I see it is SaaS is not going to die. It's actually going to be bigger than ever. It evolves and it becomes a data layer. Think about what an AI agent like ChatGPT or Claude needs. It doesn't need to log into a dashboard, doesn't need to click through a 5-step wizard that some PM built back in like 2018. It really just needs an API. It needs like structured, clean, secure access to read state and get results fast and with the fewest amount of tokens humanly possible so you can drive down cost. That is sort of a fundamentally different product than what most SaaS vendors are actually selling today. So you're probably going to see more, I wouldn't be surprised, API-based pricing or more of the data layer pricing. Now, what we're heading towards is a world where SaaS vendors are essentially becoming data warehouses with an API on top. That's sort of where I see it, and that's kind of what you see with like MCP service. It's just calling an API. It's going to reason over the data, it's going to decide what to do, and it's going to execute things because honestly, it's a lot better at this than humans are in any other workflow that you can build. Like I've asked Claude to poke holes in a lot of what I'm telling you today, and it's astounding. I wouldn't even thought about it. So what's important to note is this also isn't only my opinion. Like there's so many companies looking at it the same way as I am. Like you can see it happening in real time. Salesforce, whose stock is down, actually, I believe is at a discount right now because it's built Agentforce, which is basically an agent callable layer on top of their CRM. ServiceNow acquired Moveworks. Snowflake has their own agent. Grafana has their own observability agent. These companies are all essentially betting that their entire value is not going to be in the UI probably within the next few years. It's really the data layer that they offer. It's the depth and quality of what's in the system. And you can see this if you're building MCP servers or working with AI agents or even connecting them, right? The agent's mostly authenticating. It's calling the tools needed. The data gets back and the model reasons with it and takes some sort of action. The human-facing product sort of becomes almost like secondary to it. So that's what I believe in, sort of, I think when most VCs and all the Sequoia interviews I've watched sort of view it as well. So it's not really the workflow, it's sort of the infrastructure behind it and also like having a more callable API layer on top of it. Now, if I've sort of give you that oh shit moment, I don't want you to freak out. You can go breathe and touch some grass. Like this channel is not going to be me ranting all the time. I actually prefer showing hands-on and how we use these tools and how we can learn together so we can continue to be valuable in this new marketplace because things are changing and I get there's a lot of fear around it, but you shouldn't let that dictate the narrative. So I hope you subscribe to this channel, like this video, and continue to learn alongside me because it's going to be really exciting and we're going to walk through some really cool stuff. Awesome. Thank you for tuning in. Catch y'all later.